Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Nurse Converse on Nurse.org. I'm your host, Jana Price, and I don't even know where to start today, to be honest. Usually we have, I'm known for the nurse violence. I'm known to advocate for that. And I saw this story come across Nurse.org. And being a nurse and a journalist, I looked at it and said, oh, might be some more of this story. And, there's always two sides. And as I went and looked into what we're going to talk about today, this became something that has been on my mind for weeks now. And in the nursing community, you guys got to hear this. I don't know what else to say. This is something that is so multifaceted in the fact that it has the potential to affect nursing. It's affected this one nurse's life, but it has the potential to affect every nurse moving forward. Therefore, we have to talk about it. And so I've brought her on today. I have Joyce Fisher. She's joining us, as well as her attorney, Matt Luber. He's going to be filling in and answering some questions for us at the end. But I wanted to go ahead and bring her on and let her tell this story. Let me guys give you a little bit of a backdrop because some of you guys have seen it. Joyce was involved. She was a nurse at a hospital in New Jersey, Virtua, where she is a mother-baby nurse. And she has been a nurse for quite some time. And on this specific day, she caught a baby swap. And it was not on her shift. She came in. She caught the error after it had happened. And she reported it. And she was fired. So let that sink in. She caught the error. She was in no part of the error, but she got fired. I have spoken with Joyce, and I'm going to let her tell her story. But first, Joyce, I want to introduce you. Thank you for coming on. Matt, thank you for coming on. And it's been an ordeal. I know this has been life-changing for you. I mean, how could it not be? And I want you to go ahead and tell us a little bit about you before we get into your story. How long have you been a nurse? How did you become a nurse? And let's go from there.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me today and giving me the opportunity to tell a little bit about what I've been through. And hopefully this will resonate with other folks out there that are in the nursing industry, in the profession. I became a nurse in 2009. And I did my nursing career in med-surg briefly. And then I went into maternal child health, which was a desire of mine even before I became a nurse. I worked as a medical assistant in an OBGYN office. So I've always been very active in women's health and women's health issues. So I started my career at another healthcare organization in 2009. And I proceeded to work for that organization for quite some time, for several years. And in 2018, I went to go work for Virtua in their mother-baby department, in their mother-baby unit. We are one of the largest. They were one of the largest delivering hospitals in South Jersey. I have always loved maternal child health. It's always been such a fascinating field for me. To go into a little bit more of the situation that had occurred, if you want me to go into that now, I can do that.
Let's do that.
Okay.
I wanted everybody to hear that you've been a nurse for a while. You know what you're doing. This is not.
Yes.
And not to say that new nurses don't, but we all know you've got some years and experience behind you. So this was nothing. You were doing what you needed to do. So let's start out. What happened? Walk us through your normal day of you got to work. Let's start there.
I was a day shift nurse. My shift was 7 to 7. So I clocked in and I got report from a nurse from night shift. And she had told me that my assignment would be 3 couplets and that 2 of my couplets, the babies, were brought to the nurse's station throughout the shift because the parents had claimed that they were tired. So she said to me, I had the babies with me from about 2:30 until about 6 a.m. when I returned them to their mothers. Okay, I got finished getting report when the babies were last fed, different information about the parents and their things. So I went into the first room to say, hello, good morning, I'm going to be your nurse. this mom was prepared for discharge that day. So she was dressed and ready. And I said, oh, well, you look like you're ready to go, but we didn't have orders yet. So I said, let me go ahead and do your assessment, and did her assessment and proceeded to do the baby's vital signs. Since the baby was fussy and awake, I figured this is a great opportunity. Let me quick do her vital sign, his vital signs. And, and then mom said, he's really fussy. I think I'm going to feed him. That's fine. I continued to the next room to say, hello, my name is Joyce, put my name on the board. Carried on to the next room where that mother was actively nursing her baby. So I put my number on the board and I said, I'll be back to do your assessment and baby's assessment in a little bit. I just wanted to say good morning and hello, and that I'm going to be your nurse for the day. Well, that proceeded to, I was, documenting some things, getting my stuff together for my day. The shift had just began. And this was around 7:30. I saw those folks. And then I had an order for that first mother to go home. So I figured, since she's going to go home, I'm still waiting for a discharge for baby, but I'll get her some items to take home that we do. And when I approached the room, the mother was standing there going, this is not my baby. And I thought she was referring that he was fussy, like he's not my baby. But unfortunately, she said the bracelets don't match. Now, you could have heard a pin drop when she said that. I have never experienced this in my entire career. And I said, what do you mean the bracelets don't match? And she's like this. And she was like so distraught and crying, and rightfully so. And here the baby that she was holding had bracelets that matched my other mother in the other room that was actively nursing an infant. And this mother was so distraught, and the father was there too. And they were like so upset. And I was so upset because I wasn't sure what to do. So I put the baby into the bassinet, because the bassinet was marked with their correct last name. So the baby's bassinet matched the family. So when I got the baby to the nursery, I unwrapped him, unswaddled him, and sure enough, his bracelets did not match the identifier of his mother. And mom was hysterically crying, going, where's my baby? Where's my baby?
Right. Yeah, that's tough.
So I immediately called for a nursing supervisor, my mother baby coordinator, and a pediatrician, because I knew that this baby had been breastfed prior to my coming to work. And I was kind of confused as to how did we have this mix up? How did this even happen? And especially since these babies were returned to their moms at 6 a.m.
Right.
And it is our policy and practice that when anytime we separate a mom and a baby, we do a bracelet check. So I was under the assumption that that bracelet check had taken place at 6 a.m. upon return to their rooms.
As policy and procedure stated, right.
Yes, and that was what we always did. If we took a baby out of the room for circumcision, when we returned the baby to mom, we did a bracelet check that we were returning the correct baby. And the fact that I did the baby's vital signs with mom standing there, there was no reason for me to think at any point that this baby was not hers. Right. It was in her room, in a crib, identified as the same last name as mom, but the bracelets on the baby did not match. So then I had to go to the other room and retrieve that infant to make sure that was her baby, the correct baby. So when I verified bracelets and I looked, I could see that this baby belonged to mom. And I had to return the other baby to the other mother and explain. What I brought with me was supervisor and pediatrician that explained that there had been a misidentification of the newborns. And unfortunately, there was a policy that because both babies had been breastfed by the wrong mothers, which in itself is traumatic, we implemented immediately the breast milk mismanagement policy. That was the first time I've heard of said policy because I've never experienced this in my career. So we quickly ordered the labs for the parents. We ordered the labs on the infants. That way mom nor baby were exposed to any communicable diseases through the breastfeeding process. So once all that was cleared, thankfully, both babies and moms were not impacted by any communicable diseases, which was great. And that first family did eventually go home and were discharged that day.
No babies. The babies were not in harm. They were never. Everybody was safe.
Nope. In fact, the timeline, basically, the babies were in the incorrect cribs in the wrong room for approximately about 2
Okay.
hours. An hour prior before I got
Is when
there
they
was when the babies were returned. I didn't even start my shift till
okay.
7.
Yeah. Joyce, I want to ask a question here because let's go back just a little bit. And you weren't there, so you can only speak based on, maybe some history you heard. When they took the babies out of the room, where did the babies go?
They went with the nurse that was caring for them at the time. They call it the nursery, but we technically do not have a transitional nursery because we are a baby friendly facility, and our goal is to never separate our moms and babies for more than 1 hour and
Oh,
24. So there was the beginnings of some
okay.
breakdown of things right
So
there that,
you're not supposed to separate them for more than an hour. That's your policy, or that's what you
well, that's what's the recommendations of
recommendations.
baby friendly is
So
right, that we try not to separate our moms and babies.
they were separated and they went into a quote
Mm.
unquote nursery. But correct me if I'm wrong, this was not an actual nursery where you take an
It's more of a stabilization room with a CPR, with a, like a code cart for infants, or a warmer. Sometimes hearing tests are done in this area. Different things are performed in this area, but it's not really. It's called the nursery, but it's not a traditional where you would have a baby go for the night, because that's a thing of the
right.
past. That's not what current trends are
Right.
doing. We don't separate because we're a baby friendly facility.
Okay. So that's our first question is, where did these babies go? I wanted to clear that up because I know where this is going, and I
Yeah,
think it's just so important. So I want you to continue to walk us through
yeah.
that day.
So when this all had transpired, both families were extremely upset. They definitely wanted to have leadership come speak to them. They were definitely speaking litigation. There was definitely going to be some blowback for this never ever event. And I was aware of that. And I was supporting these families as best I could to get them through it and putting in place all the things. I was extremely upset and trying to, do all this as quickly as I could, having never done this in my entire career. I was kind of like a fish out of water. So luckily we got all the things done. And, I text my managers, my director. I let her know what had happened, and she's like, just calm down. You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. I'm like, well, I'm just upset because this isn't the level of care we give our patients. And it is not the level of care we give our patients. I worked with some of the greatest nurses and providers at this facility. So this was not a normal activity. Like this was tough. So I stayed on. I know my mother baby coordinator was like, why don't you go home today? You seem really upset. I'm like, I'm not leaving, because these folks, I am the one nurse that they are trusting during this event. I am not leaving them. I am staying with them. It was my weekend to work. I'm back tomorrow again. I want to continue to care for these folks. And the one family did resume care from another nurse because that was the direction of the supervisor. She said, maybe we should split up your assignment so that one nurse isn't managing these two babies again. And so one of my colleagues took over her care and ended up discharging her home. But prior to her going home, she said, the family in the room that's going home wants to see you at the bedside. I thought, oh gosh, why? So when I went there and she hugged me. The mother hugged me and cried and said, I'm so sorry that you walked into this mess. This was not your mess. You didn't make this mistake. And, we hugged and cried because I could feel their pain. Like this 1 in a million thing mess. So they ended up being discharged home, but I continued care of the other family even into the next day. So when my director had asked for a breakdown of what had happened and what was known to me and how the processes went, I gave it to her in an email, step by step, what times I was in each room and everything. And I worked Sunday, and then that Monday I was called at home to be notified that I was going to be suspended while the investigation was going on. And that I had to come in and give a verbal account of the series of events that had happened. So she said, then you can have a union rep if you choose to have a union rep. Well, I've never had to have a union rep in my entire career. I've never been called into the office. I've never had to give an account of anything like this, but I called my union, and my union rep was more than willing to sit with me as I gave an account of this episode. So that's what I did. And that I was going to be suspended until the investigation was completed, which I didn't fight. I just thought, okay, let's get an open investigation. Let's get to the root cause analysis of how this even happened. I, at this entire time, not thinking that this was ever going to be anything, a reflection of anything I did wrong. And when I sat with my director and assistant manager giving my account, I started getting asked about a policy. Well, did you check bracelets at the beginning of your shift? And I said, I've never done that. That's never been anything I was ever trained to do. I onboard new nurses, and I've never oriented them to check bracelets. And she says, well, that's the policy. Are you aware of our safety policies? And I wasn't provided said policy. The only thing I had to refer to was how I was trained, and that we had some emergency training the day of the event. Our educator came in and went over when bracelet checks are supposed to be done, and we were given a flyer that we had to do A, B, C, and D and sign off that we were given written instructions. Again, never given said policy that they were referring to. And when I said that to my director, she said, that's not the policy, when I showed her the paper that we were given the day of the event. So I continued to give her my account, and she said, okay, we're going to submit this to HR, have them review, and we'll let you know when they've made a decision. She's like, when are you on the schedule again? I said, I work Friday. She's like, don't worry. We'll hopefully have you back to work by Friday. No big deal. I wouldn't miss a day. I said, okay. I was trusting that they were going to do a thorough investigation. And they also investigated the nurse that had made the error. The nurse that was in charge of returning those babies who had their care the night before. So less than 24 hours later, I get a call that HR's made a determination. Could I come in with my said union rep? And I said, sure. I came in the next day. I came in on Thursday. I gave my account on Tuesday. HR made a determination on Wednesday. And by Thursday, I went in to meet. I was fired for gross negligence and reported to the Board of Nursing.
I mean,
and I had a million questions as to how did this happen? Not necessarily what happened to me. How did the babies get switched in the first place? How are two babies out of a crib at the same time by one nurse? That was very suspicious to me.
Right. This is
it's impossible.
Anybody listening right now, I think I've had some moments through the week where I'm like, do I take a deep breath and calm down about this, or do I hit the Rocky soundtrack? And I've hit the Rocky soundtrack, obviously, because this is intense. Basically, from everything you said, and guys listening, especially new nurses, but the more experienced nurses, you're going to stop and think, put yourself in Joyce's shoes. You have gone to work. You're getting report. And I'm not a mother baby nurse, but this applies to anybody. You go in on any unit, and let's just say it's even, you find out, you get report, and then you go in and you find out maybe a wrong med was hanging. Maybe, something was done wrong. And the other nurse had done that. And you go to report it, and you are terminated. You're terminated for reporting something safety that you had absolutely nothing to do with. What this is going to do, it's going to set the precedent. This sets the precedent that now nurses can't speak up for safety. Joyce, you spoke up out of safety for those families. You did what was right. You did what you were supposed to do when you caught it. And now I think about the fear. Who's going to go to work now? They're going to remember, wait a second, I've caught somebody else, and we all make mistakes. It's human to err. I've done a whole episode where a nurse accidentally killed a patient for making a med error, and she was not fired. She was brought in to talk about root cause analysis. She was they learned from the experience, but yet you're coming and they say, absolutely not. We're going to fire you. And you didn't even make the error. So this is why it's so important for this story to get out and for people to understand that you did the right thing. So that's what I want to ask. Has there been a root cause analysis? that you're aware of?
I have no idea. And I think too, the reason why I've been like so adamant about this situation and this case and root cause analysis is in my previous career at another organization, I was in leadership. I was an assistant manager of labor and delivery and mother baby. I have also been a nurse in child protective services. I have been a supervisor. I have in child protective services. I've managed OB practices in my career over the last since 2009. So I'm not a new nurse. I think that the whole point of this was we never got to the root of how it happened in the first place. There's been no investigation to any of the nurses that worked that night. And that day, they have not even spoken to the nurse that resumed care of that one couplet that day. I spoke with her to say, did anybody talk to you? She said, I haven't heard a word since. It's October now. And this was in July. Like, no investigation's been done. There's only been retaliation against myself and the nurse that made the error. And they want to pick apart, did you do this? Did you do that? Regardless of even if I had done said policy, the babies were already switched. We still would have had to implement the mismanagement of breast milk policy, regardless if I checked it at 7:05 when I clocked in or when mom came to me with it. The outcome was not going to change.
Right, exactly.
We still had to implement A, B, C, and D. And the fact that they're retaliating against me for their own good of their own lawsuits and litigation still doesn't change the fact that these babies were switched in error before I even got in my car to go to work. So, people can say, oh, well, you're a good nurse it doesn't matter what kind of nurse I am. It still wasn't going to change. Whoever clocked in that day and got that assignment was still going to be in the same shoes that I'm in. And that's the frustrating part of all of this. It's not about me. This whole thing is not about me. This is about an organization doing what's right and taking an opportunity to educate and change policy and have a safe work environment. I mean, we were conditioned to know, even in our yearly annual trainings, was see something, say something. We don't go retaliate against whistleblowers and all these things that I also was believing. I was shared governance chair. I was the chair of our shared governance, our nursing governing body.
Right.
I was a very engaged employee. My review from March was stellar, top tier pet talent. To go from a stellar employee to grossly negligent in 4 months was devastating. To see gross negligence, implies intent. I did not intend to go to work and hurt anyone that day.
Not.
No, absolutely not.
Read this hospital statement. We are deeply committed. This is from Virtua in response that they put out. We are deeply committed to fostering a fair and just culture where every colleague is empowered and encouraged to speak up about safety concerns without fear of retaliation. Reporting incidents that may impact the safety of our patients or colleagues is both supported and expected as part of our shared responsibility to uphold the highest standards of care. While we do not comment on pending legal matters or individual personnel decisions, we can say that every situation is thoroughly reviewed and decisions are made with integrity, compassion, and alignment with our values. We remain steadfast in our commitment to providing a safe, respectful, and transparent environment for all who work and receive care within our health system. And that's from the Chief Clinical Officer at Virtua Health. That itself is a whole podcast episode, to be honest, that statement and everything that it doesn't represent from what they're saying, because fostering a fair and just culture. And if people who don't know about just culture, it breaks it down and then it talks about, it will go all the way into, is it an accident? Was it intended? Was harm intended? I don't know how they could justify this, because if you weren't there when all of this happened, regardless, and obviously, luckily, there was no harm, how could you even justify that? And to speak up about safety concerns without fear of retaliation, just like you said, see something, say something. If I were a nurse and I have a family to support and I'm going to work and I think, wait a second, if I see something but I say something, there's a chance I'm going to get fired, I'm going to keep my mouth shut. I'm sorry, I have a family. This is really hard. You are telling us one thing, but they are a blatant and absolute contradiction to what they have said and what they're saying based on what you're
Yes.
doing. This is a living,
Yes.
walking, daily proof of what nursing is going through. Not only are we going to work understaffed, we are going to work overburdened, we're going to work wondering if we're going to get beat up. Now, let's just put the cherry on top of this. If we go to work and we speak out when we find something that's wrong, now we're going to get fired. Now we're going to get fired.
Mm-hmm.
We wonder why nursing is the
Mm-hmm.
way it is. Well, look
Right.
at leadership, look at these
Right.
hospitals, look at what they're saying online, and look at what they're doing to their
Right.
staff. This is
Right.
unacceptable. This is absolutely
Right.
unacceptable. So,
Right.
with that being said, and everything that's going on, what's happening with your nursing license, Joyce?
As of right now, they have reported to the Board of Nursing that I was terminated for misconduct and gross negligence. I have not heard from the Board of Nursing directly yet, and I believe as of this moment, my license has not been impacted as of yet. But the Board of Nursing is so far backed up that it probably is only a matter of time before I hear from them for them to want to do an investigation as well and determine whether or not this situation deems me being allowed to continue to practice.
Okay.
I haven't heard from them as of this moment, but someone, I don't know this, but someone had said they're backed up a
Oh,
year.
wow. Okay.
So I really can't, I have to renew my license next May. And I know that there's specific questions they ask on their nursing renewal. Have you had any of this? Have you had any of that? You know, those questions you have to ask. How am I supposed to answer
Right.
that? You know, have you ever been terminated? You know, have you ever had misconduct against you? Well, technically, yes, but I'm not a negligent
Right.
nurse.
Exactly.
So I'm not sure how to even answer that. So, I mean, I think I'm going to cross that bridge when we get to it at this point, but you know, I've been under the guidance of my attorney, Matt, who we've been just kind of trudging along with this as best we can and, you know, see how we can get some clarification and everything. It's just, I was completely blindsided and blown away. The entire time that the conversations I had with my leadership was like, you didn't do anything wrong. Don't worry. No big deal. You know, I was really reassured that I was going to be okay because I wasn't the one that had switched the babies. And they never even looked to see whose hands touched those babies. The nurse that did it took full responsibility. 100%, this was my fault. No one else was involved, was her statement.
But then
She was terminated as well,
like you
but
said,
you know, she took full responsibility.
how did we get 2 babies?
They didn't. That's the thing. That's where the investigation fell through. It was a shoddy
To say the
investigation.
least. There's so many questions because
How could 2 babies be in one nurse's arms at the same time? It's
Right.
impossible. Another nurse had to be touching those babies. I'm not trying to point fingers. I'm trying to get to the root cause of how this
Right.
happened. Anybody can make a mistake. The babies somehow inadvertently got in the wrong cribs and returned. There was the mistake. They were returned to their mothers without a bracelet check. There was the mistake. They were taken out of their room far too long. There's the mistake. So there were 5 different, slip through the cracks, slip through the cracks until this eventually happened. And I think it's unfortunate that because I was, the one who had to report and implement the labs and up the chain and tell everybody what had happened. And because it was discovered on my shift, mom actually discovered it. But, since it was my care during my care, then they're going to tear me apart. Well, why didn't you do A, B, C, and D? And it really didn't make sense because really A, B, C, and D were still going to be
Right.
implemented because the error had occurred prior to me getting there. There was no way I could have prevented those babies going to the wrong room at 6
A, B,
a.m.
and C would have
when
not
I'm
been a
not even at
problem
work.
had the first nurse, and like we said, we all make mistakes, check the band.
Done a bracelet
Right.
check when she returned them. And it would have been caught immediately and went, oh, hold up, wait a minute, back up. This is
And then
incorrect.
we've, a near miss is a near miss.
But now there's that me. Well, why didn't you? I'm like, well, wait. Why would I go into a baby-friendly facility where a baby's in a mom's room in a crib that says mom and be like, are you sure this is your baby? Like with mom standing right
Can you
next to
imagine
me.
the precedent that would set? That's not a precedent that hospital wants either. So it's
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
You were made the scapegoat. I mean, they need to point some fingers. They need to do something.
Right.
And unfortunately, this is
Right.
not, this is so detrimental on such a bigger scale of nursing because
Yes.
this
Yes.
does so much damage to an innocent person and to the people
Right.
in nursing. And
Yes.
I've been doing my research as I've looked into this, and I have, just within my line of work, I know a lot of nurses, and I may or may have spoken to some other baby nurses, may or may have been at virtual or not at some point in their career. And let me just go ahead and tell you, never, no nurse in mother baby has ever said that they do a bracelet check when you go in on a
No.
report or just like that. Now they did say, and it
Right.
aligns with JCO's National Safety patient goals, checking when the baby, the 2 patient identifiers, when they come or when they leave the room, when they have a procedure, all of those
Right.
things align. They align with everything that
Yes.
you're saying, but I have yet to find
Yes.
where JCO says anything. I've yet to find a policy for any hospital, and I've yet to speak to a mother baby nurse who says, yes, every morning we unswaddle all the babies that are sleeping quietly,
And every night
and we
too.
wake them up, and we check everybody,
Right.
and we say, okay, at 7:30 in the morning, and then come on, give me a break. So
No.
they
Right.
said it's policy, but were you ever given the policy? Have you seen that policy?
I have not. I was not given the policy at the time I gave my accounts. I was not given the policy at the time that they gave me my termination. I have not even seen the actual write up of my accounts when I said what had happened and what was actually submitted to HR for their review. I've never seen. They did not give me a copy of, here, this was your attestation. Is this correct? I've never gotten an opportunity to see that. So I don't know what was given to
Yeah.
HR on my behalf of my accounts. I have not seen that. All I have is that I was terminated for a policy. And when we talk about this bracelet check at the beginning and end of a shift, this wasn't necessarily something that just wasn't done at Virtua. I worked 10 years at another facility in Mother Baby as well that we did not
Right.
do this because we didn't separate our
Right.
babies.
And I
If
mean, that
baby's
is
in with mom's
absolutely
room, you're assuming
insane.
that's her
Yeah,
baby.
that is absolutely insane that they actually think that they
Right.
are going to come up with a policy now when there's not a single policy in existence that says what they are saying. So, with
Right.
that being said, this is, Matt, where I know the nurses and who are listening now, what's next? If, God forbid, another nurse find themselves in Joyce's position, or maybe they have, legally, what are we looking at? What do nurses need to do? What's, tell us a little bit about what you can about what's going on with Joyce, how you're representing her, where legally she stands in her rights, and let nurses know, what are we supposed to do if we find ourselves in this situation?
Sure. Well, I want to first thank you for doing this, because the more attention that this gets, it's going to make a
Absolutely.
difference for Joyce, certainly, and it's going to make a difference for nurses at Virtua and nurses everywhere. In terms of just a call to action, if you know something about what happened on the events and that Joyce is speaking about, certainly reach out to us, reach out to Virtua, reach out to the nursing board, any nursing organization that may have some input on that. That certainly could help Joyce and help get to the bottom of what happened here and how we can do better. From my perspective, and we are in active litigation with the hospital, we have brought a wrongful termination suit on Joyce's behalf. She doesn't have a choice. This is existential for her, right? They've not only have terminated her employment, they've reported her to the nursing board and have accused her of gross negligence. How is that going to look on future job applications and interviews? And so we're really fighting for her career here. And from my perspective, the biggest takeaway from this is like what both of you have been talking about. Who is going to report something now? And to me, this stems more from a hospital unwilling to look itself in the mirror, sit down with its staff, its nurses, and say, how can we make sure this never happens again? What was the problem, and how do we fix it? I'm sure Joyce would love to be a part of that conversation, along with many other nurses at the hospital. But instead, they took what they view as the easier route, which is to say they did nothing wrong. There's nothing they could have done. They had all the policies and procedures, which you keep asking about it. We have not seen it yet. They've had every opportunity to give it to me, to give it to Joyce, this manufactured policy of doing a bracelet check at the time of report and shift change. We know to this day that doesn't occur at Virtua. At this very moment, it does not occur. So instead of taking the opportunity to fix it, come up with a better policy, a better procedure to make sure that this never happens again, and that all nurses are trained to do exactly what Joyce did. And the hospital is very fortunate it was Joyce there that day, and perhaps not a less experienced nurse or a nurse that's not as passionate about this, because somebody may have crumbled under the pressure, may have panicked, and may not have taken all those steps to make sure that those families were comforted, and that every hospital, policy was followed to a T to make sure that they got this thing fixed and made sure that those families were okay. So, that's why we're bringing this. It's not, as Joyce said, Joyce obviously cares about her own career, but we want to make sure that all nurses everywhere have a voice if they see an error in the hospital. That is so important, because medication errors, patient safety errors, it's going to happen. And even that poor first nurse, I'm sure she made a mistake, right? She made a mistake, and I'm not even sure she deserved to be fired over this, because mistakes do happen, and I'm sure she had no intent of harming that family or the babies. And thank God they weren't, right? So this was an opportunity for the hospital to have a teachable moment, no harm, no foul. Everybody's going to be okay. But I think they were concerned about litigation, and I think they were concerned, some of the leadership there was concerned it was going to fall on them. So the easiest thing to do is blame the nurse. Right. And we see that far too often. And, we're very, very proud to represent Joyce and to be taking this on. And, we will leave no stone unturned to get to the bottom of this.
Thank you, Matt. And like I said earlier, I interviewed a nurse who accidentally killed a patient early in her career. And the hospital came to her, and of course it was terrible. And they said, you know what? She was terrified. I'm going to get fired. You know what they said? You made a mistake. They brought her into a committee where she was influential in helping them get a safer practice, a safer device in, so that these didn't happen again. And she now speaks out about that. She was actually my mentor when I first started nursing school. I carried on to what she taught me to my new nurses. And because of that error, while it's terrible, the hospital said, you know what, we're gonna make this a teachable moment. And because of that hospital taking that and making it a teachable moment, I've put that podcast out to thousands of nurses. She has gone to become an educator, and she has spoken to thousands of nurses to make something good out of what happened. Nobody was harmed here. And I'm not just playing it down. It's a sentinel event. It is a sentinel event, and it doesn't need to happen, but it is an error. And the hospital had an opportunity to take that and to learn and to build and to create better goals. But instead, they have now put the profession of nursing in jeopardy. Of anything that could happen, this was one of the worst outcomes that could happen, and here it is happening. And so for all of you guys listening out there, this is not just some story like, oh, did you hear about this? This is, like Matt said, we've got to take action. We have to take action. We need you to go to the New Jersey Nursing Board. We need to go to your nursing boards. We need you to go to the ANA. We need you to go to any professional nursing board that you're a part of and speak up for Joyce, because she is you. This could have been you. This might be you one day. You may walk in on somebody's accidental error and you could be fired, because this is the precedent that it sets, and we can't allow it. So this is a time that I want to take, and we're going to have some information in the article and ways that you can do that, but we'll have that out for you guys to do. But Joyce, I do want to take this moment and I want to ask you, this is your life. And for a lot of us, nursing is our calling. It's our passion. This is what we love. And it's very obvious that you have had no record of any wrongdoing on your nursing, anything in your career. It's obvious you love babies, you love families, you love taking care of them. And now you can't work. You don't have your nursing license. And how has that impacted you? How is this affecting your life?
It's been really difficult. I think I was in shock the first week or two after this had happened. And then as the reality set, it sunk in, like this really happened. Like I was such an advocate for my organization. Like I was saying how much I love to work there and that we were a culture of we, and I was reinforcing within my peers all of the things that they have said, that, that our whole mission statement and everything. And, I was very engaged employee. And I just feel like such a sense of betrayal from an organization that I gave so much to. And, it's like a grieving. It is literally like a grieving where, when you have to throw away your scrubs that are embroidered with your healthcare system on them. Like that was heartbreaking to me. I had to throw them away. It was just like, and I'll never get to work for any off branch of Virtua. That is their policy. When you are fired, you cannot work for any of their organizations at all. Outpatient, inpatient, anywhere. And, with healthcare systems expanding, my job pool's getting real small as far as where I can work. And, I feel like I've grieved this person, Joyce the nurse. I've went over in my head a million times. What could I have done different? How could this have a different outcome? What could I have done to make this better? And, multiple time after time, when I've talked to colleagues or family, when I've explained the story, they're like, Joyce, you didn't switch the babies. There's nothing you could have done that could have undid what was already done. And I think that's what makes me the craziest over it and, brings me such heartache is I loved seeing new families. I loved teaching dads how to do diapers or, go see these new parents come in like deer in headlights and go home confident parents. Like I loved that. That was my favorite teaching. Maternal child health is a lot of teaching. We have 2 short days to educate parents on a lot of stuff. So we are constantly educating. It's not like I have a patient for a week. They're there 2 to 3 days and gone. So you have a very narrow window to educate. So you are communicating with your patients constantly and having rapport. And the fact that that might never be a part of my life ever again is devastating. Like devastating to the point of tears. Because that whole gross negligent piece is killing me. Because there's never a day that I ever would wake up and say, I'm identified as a grossly negligent nurse. That just, I have colleagues that will share. I've had people texting me, girls that I've oriented, women that work in other organizations that have told me, I wouldn't be the nurse I am today without your orientation. And, that kills me. I feel great that I was able to inspire other nurses, but at the same time, it's like, for what? You just kind of sit here and now that's gone. That whole part of my life from 2009 till today is gone, and let's be real.
Absolutely.
I'm 54 years old. I'm not 25. I don't have 100 years to be a nurse yet. I've been a nurse for a long time.
And this is what you put in.
Where do I go from here? I'm vacant. I feel absent. I feel such a big part of my identity was my nursing career. So grieving, I wake up every day with panic attacks of thinking of this mother crying, where's my baby? I can't get that out of my head. Every day it's playing like a record player in the background. That whole story plays over and over and over and over. And I question myself and question myself and question myself. Like, what could I have done different? Not for me, not for keeping my job. It was for how do I save another nurse from this? Because it could have been anyone that swiped in the clock and had that assignment.
Absolutely. They were there. And
that's the sad part.
The betrayal is real, Joyce. I mean, you have absolutely.
I would have never anticipated this. You couldn't have. If you would have told me a year ago this would have happened, I would have said you're a liar.
I mean, Virtua is
because that's how comfortable and how much of engaged I was with leadership. I was on transformational leadership council. Like I was involved. I sat with these leaders every month in meetings, and I'm like, what happened? No one asked me. I had no conversation with any said leaders. Nothing. People that I saw every month that knew me by first name. No one's reached out and said, hey, what really happened? Nor did they ask anyone there that was there that day. What was their take?
Yeah.
Maybe they would have gotten a different perspective from someone else. They didn't even ask. That's what makes me sad, is you didn't even ask, so this could be prevented from happening again.
It was just swept under the rug. They hoped it would go away. They hope you would just,
Yep. Stop the bleed. Chop, chop.
Yeah. And this, Joyce, I do want to point out, I know this is I've tried to put myself in your shoes, and it's just, it's heartbreaking. It's infuriating. It is unbelievable. I feel like we should have just maybe a Black Mirror TV show for nursing. And by the way, if you're from HBO on The Pitt and you need some season 2 real life things that have happened, because you did really well on the first season pointing out for nurses, I can get you in touch with Joyce and Matt because this is really what happens in nursing. You really want to hit the nail on the head and give us some good content like you've done. This is what we are going through in nursing. This is what we have gone through. But Joyce, I do want to point out that there is not a nurse who's going to be listening to this and anywhere that will not think that you are a good nurse. Every nurse is going to think you are a good nurse. And what you're doing now is meaningful.
Thank you.
You're speaking out, and I know it's scary. I know it's scary to speak out against the system. I myself have done it. And it's every emotion you can imagine. You're scared, you're tired, you're embarrassed, you're grieving. So it's a loss. It's embarrassing when there's no reason to be embarrassed, but when a system does that to you after everything you've done, it almost feels shameful when there's no reason to have shame. I hope that and I ask every nurse to reach out to Joyce or somehow encourage her to let her know that she's doing the right thing, that you are going to make a difference, and that your story is going to make a difference, and you are standing up for nurses and speaking out, and that every contribution that you've made in nursing in the past has mattered, and everyone, even you not being at bedside right now, you're still contributing greatly to nursing. So I want you to know that we support you. We as nurses are here to support you. And when I saw this story, I had to hunt you down and find you, because I knew you had something to say that is going to change the face of nursing. So I just really for doing
Thank
that.
you.
And as we wrap up here, I want to ask you 2 things. What is your plan from here? And also you said there's so many people who have, I know there's a lot of people, I can just tell from the nurse you are, that you have changed a lot of nurses' lives, but is there any nurse that you'd like to thank as we wrap this up?
I would like to thank some of the nurses I worked with that day, because they were totally supportive. That's the thing that about this whole situation that's so conflicting is, this is going to cast a light on a system, but I don't want it to be a negative light on the nurses.
Absolutely.
These nurses that I worked with at Virtua were some of the most amazing nurses. The providers, like I worry a mom might hear this that's pregnant and have reservations. We have some of the best OBGYN providers at Virtua. Our providers are excellent. Our patients get excellent care. The nurses are so phenomenal to these new families. So I had such a great team. Our lactation team was amazing. So that's what makes it even sadder, is that Virtua has great nurses, and what they're doing to them is just not fair. I'm sure my situation, yes, it's maternal child health, and it's kind of like a very unique population, but this makes me question what else is going on in med surg, in ICUs, like what else is happening? I can't be the only one. I have friends that have no longer work at Virtua, that after I run into them, they've had similar things.
Right. That runs deep.
I'm like, what is going on? I have a friend that has a litigation with them as well for an injury. I'm like, this is insane. We just all survived the pandemic. We were the frontline heroes, remember? In 2020, we were frontline heroes. Now we're sacrificial lamb.
Yep.
That's what makes me so sad, is that you have good people getting up and going to work every day with the best interest of taking care of these people, whether they're the elderly, or the most critical newborns, like the whole spectrum. Virtua has great nurses, and the fact that this isn't against the nurses or the providers. This is something against leadership, an organization where they're putting dollars before the value of their staff. They're protecting themselves at the risk of quality nurses. And that makes me sad, because no nurse that I know ever has gotten up to go to work to harm someone. It just is not in our nature. We are one of the most respected professions. We are the most honest profession. And I was being completely honest and full transparency of everything that had transpired that day. And the repayment for that was literally watching my entire career flush down a toilet, is how it feels. I just watched it spiral down, and with no control, with no way to stop it. It had already been done. It's very sad. It's frustrating. I've had nurses reach out from other organizations that I worked for, that they saw the story and they're like, I can't believe this. I've had midwives reach out to me that I worked with at the facility. A midwife reached out to me and saying, don't you think for 1 minute you're not a great nurse? You didn't do anything wrong. I had midwives. I've had leaders, other leadership from other organizations that I ran into on the street, and they were like they were my peers when I was leadership at another organization. I ran into them at a craft show, and they were like, did I read what I actually read? And they were like, I can't believe this happened to you. And that was a peer that I was in leadership with. She's like, this is insane.
Right.
I'm like, some days I still don't even believe it happened.
Because it is insanity. This truly is insanity, Joyce.
It is. And it's heartbreaking. And, this could have been anybody. And that's why I fight, because what if I was a single mother? What if this was my only form of income? And, what if I had children to feed, or I had lost my benefits? Luckily, I didn't use Virtua's benefits. I was fortunate enough. But what if my healthcare benefits stopped on a dime and I have a sick kid on insulin? How would that have impacted my mortgage, my car payment, everything? This could have destroyed someone. It's broken me for sure. But at the same time, I still get up every day and it's not breaking me. I'm going to continue to tell my story again and again and again until there is something is settled with this, because this is not fair. What happened to me could have happened to anybody, and it's just not fair. It just could happen to anyone, but that day it was me.
And that's exactly it. And I want to wrap up, guys, with saying, as we've mentioned so many times before in this whole podcast episode, this is not a time to be complacent. This isn't a time to just, oh yeah, but that was terrible what happened. We have to get proactive, and we will have ways to do that. And just put yourself in Joyce's shoes. This could have easily been any of us. It doesn't have, it couldn't be, it might not be mother baby. It can be the ER. You simply go in and somebody's hung some Vaco, or maybe blood wasn't checked and you happen to be the one who goes in and the wrong blood was given and it's already kicked over to saline, and you figure it out and you let somebody know, and oh wait, hold on, sitting a little bit. Everybody who touched the blood is going to be fired, and you just happen to walk in and come in on shift. There are so many situations that this can happen, and it's not just mother baby. This is going to affect all nursing. There will be no more see something, say something. It will be see something and keep your mouth shut, because you're going to lose your job. And that is not safe to nurses. That is not safe to patients. We have a duty as nurses to do what's right by our patients, what's right by us, and the administration, these hospitals have a duty to do what's right by us. And if you are going to claim that you have a just culture, you better stand by your just culture. If you're going to say that you're going to they can report safety concerns without fear of retaliation, you better not retaliate, because there are many instances in many hospitals where things like this have happened that are similar, where the organization has stepped forward and said, you know what, we're going to make this a learning experience. We're going to do the right thing. It happens. They don't go and fire the nurse and put the whole nursing profession in jeopardy. Right. So this is a call out to Virtua. Right. Do the right thing. Do the right thing by the nurses that work for you. Obviously, I believe all nurses, for the most part, are great. I support them with everything I have. And I hope that everybody listening today will do the same. And let's get proactive. Let's do something. Let's fight for Joyce. Let's fight with Joyce. Let's fight for nursing. Let's fight for ourselves, because we need it. We deserve it. We are the most respected profession in the world. And I know the healthcare heroes, of course, here we are. I always tell people they want to claim as heroes and throw us down. We are nurses. You can call us a superhero, whatever. Why can't nurses in itself? We don't need to be compared to a superhero. We are nurses. We are right alongside a superhero, and it should always be known that nurses are one of the greatest professions that there are in the world. So I want to close out today and thank you guys for coming on. Joyce, once again, thank you for being so vulnerable. So
Thank
brave.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Matt,
you.
for
We
stepping up
appreciate
and
it.
representing her and just setting a precedent for nurses too, that, hey, guys, you find yourself in trouble, you find somebody like Matt. They're going to take care of you. He's going to make sure that justice is going to be, it's going to happen, Joyce. So
We're going to get to the bottom of this for sure.
So thank you guys for coming on. I want to let you guys know that we're going to follow Joyce. We're going to follow this, Joyce. We're gonna let everybody know when we get the outcome that you deserve, and we're here rooting for you, and we will to the very last minute. So thank you, and thanks guys for coming on. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so
Hope
much.
you guys have a great day, and remember, it's just a great day to be a nurse. Thanks,
Thank you, Jen.
guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.